Story 1. I've always been a moderate conservative and consider myself Republican. Up until now, I've been apathetic about politics, much to my husband's dismay, as he loves talking politics. I was too busy with my kids the last 7 years to pay attention to how far right the right has gone. I knew Trump did bad things, but didn't have the mental energy to dig into it. Then, I got deeply involved in reading and informing myself about the spread of the coronavirus when it started in Asia. Trump did one bad thing after the next, crippling our response and confusing the public. This resulted in a country divided when it should have been united against the virus. It all got my attention and enraged me. Finally, I saw the petty and selfish things Trump has been doing. The pandemic has really shown everyone's true colors. Then George Floyd was murdered and peaceful protests were met with more brutality. Trump encouraged the violence and orchestrated a brutal, unconstitutional clearing of peaceful protesters to get a photo opportunity. That was the last straw. I started to look into Joe Biden. I'm no Biden supporter and never paid much attention to him. I also heard rumors of his negatives. Old, creepy, senile, and makes tons of gaffes. Comparing this to what damage Trump has done in the last 6 months, I'll take the creepy, rambling grandpa. Then I watched his interview by Trevor Noah. Color me surprised. He's quite eloquent and way more human than Trump, who acts like a toddler. Biden has got my vote. My fundamental beliefs haven't changed, but the Republican Party has devolved and is led by a narcissistic, petty, racist, childish coward. We cannot have 4 more years of this. Story 2. I didn't vote for him, but I don't understand why I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody, and I wouldn't lose any voters wasn't the end. The idea of supporting a political leader who jokes that he could murder someone and still be adored by the American people makes me nauseous. Story 3. Before the impeachment, I was never all that angry. I never voted for him to begin with, and I wasn't planning to this year either. I did vote for Mitt Romney in 2016 and 2018 because I like most of the work he does for my state, despite other things. I was surprised by his vote to impeach and even impressed in a way. I knew he had committed career suicide by doing this, but the backlash he got from the state and from the Trump administration, as well as the Republican Party as a whole, was disgusting to me. When Mitt Romney was potentially exposed to COVID-19, and Trump sarcastically said, "Gee, that's too bad," it was clear how little he cared if my representative lived or died. That was it. The president is dead to me until a new one is elected. I strongly oppose Trump. Story 4. In 2016, when he demonstrated beyond a shadow of a doubt that he completely lacked any moral fabric by attempting to disparage McCain's military record because he was captured. A couple of days after this post, my site-wide account was permanently suspended due to multiple repeated violations of Reddit's content policy. I have no idea what that's about, and there's been no response to my appeal. Help? Any ideas? Thank you. My suspension appeal was eventually upheld with no explanation. Story 5. I retain my political leanings. I am a fiscal conservative with compassion for my fellow citizens. I consider myself an independent, and functionally I have been what I would consider a moderate conservative. I still am. I value differences of opinion and believe that our collective ideologies make us stronger. We don't need to be a nation of only liberals or conservatives, of only socialists or capitalists, of only whites or Hispanics or Asians or blacks. I believe now and always have believed that the diversity of Americans makes us stronger, gives us more answers, and allows us to come to greater stability in our society. We have more to contribute because of our diversity. I have for years watched, with growing concern, the division in our society and our politics. I am 59 years old and we seem much more partisan than I remember. It used to be that lawmakers could disagree civilly and debate vigorously while maintaining respect and the ability to work together. Now it seems like we have a culture of opinionated my way or the highway. When we encounter this in our various neighborhoods, we have coined a name for this kind of individual, a Karen. This year, starting with the evolving COVID pandemic, and then spilling into and snowballing with the response of our public servants to the civil rights protests, I have seen a complete lack of diplomacy and leadership. At this moment in time, what our nation needs most desperately is not politics but the ability to lead. We are desperate for a leader to settle down the national emotion, to acknowledge the legitimacy of Black Lives Matter, to lead us in introspection, and to lead us forward in constructive ways to unite people of all races, cultures, and politics. What we have is a Karen who gets in our face, self-righteously shouts at us, intimidates, and refuses to listen. Our President Karen has systematically divided us when we need most desperately to be unified. He has riled us up when we have needed settling down. He has blustered when we needed introspection, and has threatened when we needed leadership. The saddest thing is that our country right now is experiencing the greatest civil rights renaissance of my generation. This would be much less painful with leadership, but it is going to happen anyway because it is the right thing to do. Karen has mismanaged the office of president. He has utterly failed to lead, and he will lose the election this fall by historic and unprecedented margins. We have 6 months to endure President Karen. The good thing is, look around. People are uniting in amazing ways anyway. I believe the vast majority of Americans are behind Black Lives Matter and civil rights with equal protection under the law. I believe peaceful discourse on these issues is up to us. It certainly isn't going to be helped along by President Karen. Luckily, we the people have that ability in us, even if President Karen does not. Thank you very much for the upvotes, awards, and the kind comments. If you read through the comments, you will see positive thoughts from both sides of the aisle, which very much is an encouragement to me, and supports the idea that people with differing views and ideas can still care about issues while retaining their respect for each other, acknowledging their collective wisdom and celebrating their common ground. Pay attention, Mr. President. Story 6. Moments that I'm surprised aren't on here. Very fine people on both sides. After the Charlottesville neo-Nazi rally. Children in cages. Robert Mueller's investigation. But I'm not complaining. The train that arrives late still arrives. Edited to add, children in cages has since become a top comment, which is great. At the time, I had scrolled through near to the bottom and found nothing. Story 7. I was raised in an ultra-conservative family. I only started to pay attention to politics during President Obama's time in office, which I was told would result in Sharia law being imposed on America. I saw Fox News, my parents, and those around me rail against Obama every day, listing the various ways he would destroy the country. I voted for President Trump, thinking that in a blue state it didn't really matter, so I didn't have to question or research it and figured he would lose anyway, absolving me of any blame for President Clinton administration. My biggest regret is making the popular vote closer. My family, Fox News, and those around me have all completely rejected their values to follow Trump. Every day, he does something they vowed Obama would do to ruin the country, and they twist themselves explaining why it's actually a good thing. My good, wholesome Christian family members are now some of the most genuinely racist and least intellectual people I know. But there are other siblings like me as well, and they give me hope. It took me about 3 months of being a casual follower of politics to start being involved in local elections, driving over an hour to vote, and actually paying attention. I have hopefully started to make up for my mistake by voting more intelligently in the last primary and having discussions with the siblings that are asking similar questions. I can say without hesitation that people who are voting for Trump are either utterly politically apathetic, as I was formerly, or filled with hate, whether they think about it or not. He simply isn't an intelligent vote with all we've seen. Edit. Added some context to the first paragraph to clear some confusion. Story 8. I used to think I was a Republican. This administration made me realize I was not educated on politics at all. If I had to pick one thing that was truly eye-opening for me, it was the worsening of the situation with children in detention facilities. It was something I didn't know about until this presidency, and I can't stand the thought of it continuing to happen. Story 9. I don't know if the rally took place before or after he was elected, but I didn't see it until after. It was the one where he talked about how he hates windmills, and I believe he said he knows more about wind than anybody. Then he did a bit about not being able to watch TV because it's not a windy day. That was when I became embarrassed about my vote and started to regret it. It only got worse after that. Story 10. When I realized his words had no meaning. You literally cannot trust anything he says. Could be blatant lies and he would not care at all. It is dangerous. I was on the executive board of my college's Republican Party organization. It has been a long couple of years. My family and some friends, though, will still try to justify what he says. He's just trolling the liberals. He's getting back at the fake news. The last presidential election was the first time I could vote. I have grown up in a red state. My family watches Fox News. I went to a very conservative church. It took a couple of years of college to snap me out of it. I am pretty moderate now. It is a microcosm of thinking and hate where you have to keep making excuses and justifying his actions to continue to be sane. That is where the alternative news networks come into play. They make people think they are the victims, that the liberals and George Soros are trying to take our guns and disrespect our flag. All protesters are rioters. Story 11. Annoying non-stop Twitter rants, egomaniac, lack of empathy, divide and conquer mentality, tyrannical. Having to check the news neurotically to see what current nonsense he is stirring up. White House turnover rate. Front door is now a revolving door. Anyone that gets excited to work with or for him does and then goes running, screaming resignation, and then says he's imbalanced, unethical, conniving, and divisive. All of his friends are either doing time in prison or dead. He was just inspecting the underground bunker. Cowardly and awkward walk to the DC church, surrounded by police, special weapons and tactics, United States Secret Service, and snipers, to hold the Bible like a dinner menu. He doesn't care about religion. I live near him. What he said about prisoner of war John McCain. He likes people who don't get caught. Punch him in the face. I'll pay your legal fees. We've gotten a good picture now about exactly how this dude rolls, and it is not good. When the country is going to hell in a handbasket and we need to hear from our leader, presidential address, he's absent or says something extremely inappropriate on Twitter to make the situation worse. We desperately need someone a lot more emotionally and mentally intact to handle the economy, nurture peaceful and strong foreign relations and policies, and remind us, the citizens of the United States of America, that we are united and all in this together to make this the fantastic and strong nation that it is. He has made a mockery of the United States. Unacceptable. I didn't vote last election. It was like voting for corrupt or more corrupt. Registered independent voter, also known as no party affiliation. I didn't want to. Thought the Democrats all looked ridiculous, but now voting for Biden. Done with Trump. Story 12. A relative of mine messaged me about a week after the George Floyd protests to inform me that she had seen a post I made online about it, and it moved her to tears. She told me she was no longer supporting Donald Trump because he did not once speak out about police brutality and everything happening. I believe it is the fact that when she saw George Floyd's death, she saw her black family members in his place and realized she could no longer support someone who would let that happen. As much as I love her, her views have in the past been problematic and kind of racist, which hurt me. It was a shock to me that she changed so suddenly, considering how awful he has been in the past. But I think when things become personal and threaten your family, it can be the one thing that shocks you into seeing the reality of things. Story 13. Recently, when he threatened to shoot looters, I don't support the looting. It's just that the punishment shouldn't be death. Also, when he said that the 75-year-old man who was pushed down was actually anti-fascist. Story 14. To be honest, I was never a Trump supporter, but I felt that the guy was not as bad as the media portrayed him and was somewhat redeemable. I was essentially an enlightened centrist. Then he betrayed the Kurds. Those people fought and died alongside United States soldiers, and Trump just stepped aside and let them be slaughtered so he wouldn't offend Turkey. I can tolerate an immature person. I cannot tolerate a traitor. Edit. Thanks for the recognition. Edit 2. Considering that I am not a doctor, nurse, or any kind of healthcare worker, I don't think I deserve a healthcare hero award. Story 15. Well, I just changed my affiliation 2 weeks ago, but I had been a Republican since I first registered 25 years ago. When he had so many people removed from their jobs in his team because they came out and said something he didn't agree with. No one expects the president to know everything. You are supposed to find the best people to get you the information needed. Story 16. I supported him in 2016 as he was the anti-establishment candidate. I didn't look too much into the things he did or supported. I just knew that he wasn't mainstream, so I thought he must be good. Turns out that was wrong. I regretted it not too long after he was sworn in. I believe my breaking point was more of a cumulative thing. It didn't really happen all at once, but seeing his actions over the course of his presidency. This year, I became significantly more politically active and will be voting for Biden. Story 17. I was a lifelong Republican until Trump was nominated in the primaries last time. I could not believe my party could support a man like that. I did not vote for him last time, but I voted Libertarian. As much as I hate contributing to a two-party system, I will not throw my vote away again this time. Honestly, though, I have done a lot of soul-searching in the last 4 years, and I do not align with Republican Party values anymore. I do not care who they put in that position, they are dead to me, and they only have themselves to blame. I voted all blue in the midterm elections for the first time in my life, and I will be in November too.